Given the lead villain of this series is basically named Wailing Bloodbath, this series just screams Halloween. Although I guess technically it screams Bloodbath, but you get what I mean. Chanbara Showtime, Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. Hello and welcome to Earth Alien ProtoMet, and today I'm going to take a look at Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, the 33rd entry in the Super Sentai series. Is this combination of Chanbara swordplay and tokusatsu action razor sharp? Or is it dull and in need of honing? For centuries, the samurai that served the Shiba clan have battled against the Gadoshu, the monstrous denizens of the Sanza River, the Japanese equivalent of the River Styx. Several years after the last battle against the Gadoshu leader Chimatsuri Dokoku, in which he was sealed, the current head of the Shiba clan, Takeru Shiba, must gather the young samurai who have been trained in the art of magical writing called Mojikara to fight alongside him as the Gadoshu begin to grow stronger once more. I'm not going to lie, Shinkenger holds a special place in my heart, because it was the very first entry in the Super Sentai series that I was actually able to manage to watch through from start to finish. And coming back to it after all these years, I have to admit, it still holds up. The show has some incredibly well-written characters. Shinken Blue, Ryonosuke Ikanami, is a former young kabuki actor with a strong dedication to his role as a samurai, but he has a tendency to over-emote due to his theater training. Shinken Pink, Mako Shiraishi, who one day dreams of becoming a bride, despite her inability to cook anything edible, is equally dedicated to being a samurai, and her skills are almost as good as Blue's. Shinken Yellow, Kotoha Hanaori, is a timid and self-deprecating girl, and the main reason she's even a samurai is because her older sister is sickly and unable to take up the role herself. Shinken Green, Chiaki Tani, is a bit of a rebel, having been given no formal training from his father, but he becomes determined to surpass Takeru once he sees how strong the head of the Shiba clan is. And later in the series we're introduced to Shinken Gold, Genta Umamori, a sushi vendor who taught himself to become a samurai after receiving a mech from his childhood friend Takeru. Speaking of Takeru, Shinken Red, of all the characters, he's the one who is the least developed over the course of the series. But given what happens towards the end of the series, this makes sense. I'm not going to spoil it here, but if you don't mind spoilers, then go check out last month's top 10 list for all the juicy details. And finally, there's the head attendant, and the father figure to Takeru, Hikoma Kusakabe, who practically raised Takeru to be the strong samurai he is today, and he proudly serves his lord with the help of the clan's silent helpers, the Kuroko. But the villains are pretty good as well. There's of course the leader, the aforementioned Dokoku Chimatsuri, who spends most of the series sitting around drinking, but when we get a glimpse of his power, it is incredibly impressive. He's served by the squid-faced Shitari of the Bones, who, while not physically strong, is intelligent and often schemes to help his lord. There's the shamisen player Dayu Usakawa, a former human who fell down the corrupted path after learning the man she loved and patiently waited for years married another woman. Similar to Dayu, there's Juzo, a once human Gadoshu swordsman who wanders in search of a powerful opponent to test his skills. And finally there's Akumaru Suigarano, a Gadoshu introduced roughly halfway through the series who swears loyalty to Dokoku, but who's secretly plotting his own schemes. Combine them with the plethora of Ayakashi monsters that the Shinkengers fight each week, as well as the grunts who I was so impressed with I include them on a top 10 list, and you've got a great cast on both sides of the conflict. This series is also notable for being the first of one of the few entries in the Super Sentai series to have a crossover with the Kamen Rider series, though the majority of the crossover occurred over on Kamen Rider Decade, while Shinkenger merely acknowledged that the crossover was even happening in series. About the only thing I can really criticize about this series is how much of a mess the giant robot, Shinkeno, becomes late in the series, with all the mechs combined into a huge pile of mechs that I like to call Fusterclucko. The base design is pretty solid, though. Samurai Sentai Shinkenger is a fantastic series, with many great characters and a surprise twist that sticks with you. It is in competition with Jetman for my personal favorite season of the Super Sentai series, which is more than I can say about its American adaptation, Power Rangers Samurai, and its follow-up, Power Rangers Super Samurai. Normally, I wouldn't even mention the Power Rangers adaptation of a Super Sentai season, but in this instance, the two are nearly identical. There are a few changes, such as the removal of the Shiba assistants, the Kuroku, which are replaced by the bumbling duo of Bulk, a character from the earliest seasons of Power Rangers, and Spike, the son of Bulk's longtime buddy Skull, who are training themselves to become samurai. Another change is that the relationship between Dio and Juzo, now renamed Decker, is different as well. And instead of being a former kabuki actor, the Blue Ranger is a former swimmer, which results in him having less of a personality in comparison. Which, unfortunately, is a problem he shares with the other Rangers in the American adaptation. While the characters are mostly the same as their Sentai counterparts, the actors don't do a very good job at, acting, resulting in them coming across as very wooden. Also, for some incredibly bizarre reason, the Rangers are given armored forms that they only ever use when piloting their Zords, which, as you can probably guess, are already pretty well armored. And the only explanation I can think of is that they did it simply to sell more toys, because the show sure doesn't provide one. Despite being largely the same as the Japanese original, Power Rangers Samurai and Super Samurai feels kind of soulless. The voice actors for the monsters do well enough, but without interesting Rangers, the series just falls flat. Stick with Shinkenger. And until next time, see ya!